Greetings YouTube, Dargaho, Tony C0451 here. 2022 is about halfway over, so here's a recap on what has happened in my life thus far. Hope that the year has been good to everyone else too. Where to start? Same old work, family life, DIY buzz cuts, and action figure hunts. More on figure hunts and my figure hobby in a moment. Saw two Donnie Yen films from the 2010s when work was slow. Didn't expect Yen to portray a newly hired teacher whose job is to teach failing students. I also celebrated May the 4th by playing Republic Commando and Knights of the Old Republic. Still no further word on a teased remake for Knights of the Old Republic after last September though. I also managed to draw fan art during my spare time, hence the image of myself resembling a Dalgu creature from the Neptunia series. Yet another video game franchise that I missed out on. Last but not least, I'm playing Deus Ex Invisible War again to celebrate the franchise's 22nd anniversary. This year also had me run into familiar folks whom I knew previously, old coworkers and classmates among others. Most were friendly, while others weren't. While I'm glad that the friendlier faces outnumbered those who weren't, I still get terrible flashbacks when I see those who were once hostile towards me. I might as well have PTSD. I'll do whatever's necessary to protect myself from them within reason. I'll explain further some other time, but not here, because I wouldn't want myself or anyone else to be targeted just for speaking out against those who hurt me. To those who are still friendly with me, however, what up? 2022 has been a great year for action figure hunts for the most part, despite that I didn't buy much. I managed to buy Studio Series Soundwave, Core Class Ravage, and Masterverse Tila after countless visits to Target. Several Target employees know me by now for being a collector and for always yammering on about figures. If said employees happen upon this video, what up? And I'll try to keep my nerd and toygasms to a minimum. Also, thanks for seeing my action figure photos on occasion. Let me go on more about collecting here. Being a collector on a budget, I had to be very picky about my wish list, which meant that there were many figures that I had to either take a hard pass on or return outright. Those choices weren't easy, but adulthood is about making hard choices when they count, huh? To all fellow collectors, rising prices and ongoing global crises will cause us to scale back on our collections, so we each have to decide what's worth buying and what isn't. That leads me to another hard choice that I must make. After I bought the action figures that I've shown earlier, I've been thinking about my future as a collector and whether or not the rest of my life would have room for my beloved hobby. I looked back on the early days of said collecting hobby from the late 90s and saw my current lineup afterwards. I have about 100 or 200 figures at the moment, if anyone's wondering. I also reminisced on my figure custom jobs and then noticed how far I've come since I haphazardly painted my Optimus Prime's plastic sword. While my collection is small time compared to other people's lineups, I slowly realize that my growing collection won't always be with me later on in life. Plus, I should also consider the trouble of moving my entire collection with me if my family and I have to move elsewhere. Speaking of which, my family barely tolerates my hobby and is also a factor in whether or not I'll resume collecting. The bottom line? I must decide when to stop collecting figures. Not an easy choice, but I hope that I can retire from collecting in style. How? I want to do at least 2 more custom paint jobs before then, since I did decide on which figures to paint. Those figures are set to release near the end of this year, so I have time to make up my mind. I will also state that I do not plan on selling my collection, so anyone who has eyes on my lineup will be out of luck. Besides, most figures that I have can be bought on the internet elsewhere. Mind the exorbitant prices though. After all that was said, what's ahead for this channel? I still have reviews to slowly work on for the figures that I currently have. Besides that, well, family life and work will have me scale back on making more content. A shame too, since I wanted to make more videos this year. Folks who do know me on YouTube will still see me around, if that's any consolation. If people want me to be specific, I will review my custom Masterverse Tila. Customizing her was a labor of love, even though I didn't need much paint to start with. Perfect timing too, since the Golden State Warriors became champions this year. I'll have to cut this short. Thanks for watching this to the end if you haven't already. In the meantime, here's to the rest of 2022. Also, please continue to follow safety precautions and wear masks because we're still in a pandemic. 6 feet away or 6 feet under. Your choice. 多謝收睇。